Good afternoon, Dr. Christian, Dr. Morden, and Dr. Rogers. In this presentation, I'll be speaking about the life of Sir Charles Lyell. My name is Natasha Tsolakis, in case you are wondering. Before we start off, I'd like to start off with a quote by Charles. The present is the key to the past. And as I have completed this research assignment, I have seen that Lyell definitely lives and stands by this quote. This is just a couple of pictures of Lyell, some illustrations and drawings, and then a photograph. Lyell was born on November 14th, 1797, and he died on February 22nd, 1875. Lyell's father invested many hours in teaching Charles about science, predominantly in the science of nature. Charles completed many years in expensive private schools, however, he did prefer learning anything he could from his father. He was quite close with his father. At the age of 19, Lyell attended Oxford University, and while he was there, he studied mathematics and geology. Charles usually spent holidays travelling and making insightful observations of geological formations. So this is where his interest grew more and more for geology. He graduated university with honours in science and in a bachelor's degree in the subject of art. Pretty versatile, right? He decided to continue with his studies and he went on to receive his master's degree in art. Now, due to his passion and commitment concerning geology, Charles became a renowned geologist in the mid-19th century. As you could imagine, Charles's accomplishments were very impressive. Charles is renowned for his book, Principles of Geology, which is just right here, in which there are 3 volumes. It has been deliberated that this book is a mixture of his expertise and personal observations while travelling. So in the first chapter, he explains that geology is a science which investigates the successive changes that have taken place in the organic and the inorganic kingdoms of nature. It inquires into the causes of these changes and the influence which they have exerted in modifying the surface and external structure of our planet. The publication of this book ensured that Lyell became recognized amongst the leaders in this field, which persuaded him to devote more time to his passion. It was during these years that he was able to become easily connected with famous scientists like Charles Darwin and Sir Charles Herschel. We will talk about Charles Darwin a little bit later in this presentation. Lyell was one of the first scientists that was able to articulate the science of geology to the general public, which is very important because no one before this was able to do this, especially in this field of geology. This is how the world knew about geology and how important this was for a modern growing world. His prime belief was evident in this book, that all the past changes of Earth are meticulous by the forces that are operating now. This particular concept became the fundamental basis of modern geology. So you could call him the father of geology. Charles was also the author of the book Antiquity of Man, which is just this book over here. It was printed in 1863 and mainly looked at while human beings inhabit the earth and how they got here. Charles's main geological approaches tend to be an assessment of evolution, which is the idea that the universe is a result of random cosmic accidents. Elements of Geology was a book that came straight after Principles of Geology and goes more into depth. Now, in addition to these groundbreaking books, Lyell also he became the earliest geological scientist that embraced Darwin's theory of natural selection in biology. This was the theory of evolution that suggests that all life is related and has been descended from a common ancestor, so example, the birds and the bananas, or the fishes and the flowers. Charles Lyell was also a strong supporter of uniformitarianism. Sorry, I'll say that again. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. Uniformitarianism. This particular belief states that geological and biological causes All forces have always been working in the same way and with the same intensity. Before we move on, this is just a quote from one of Charles's books. I'll just let you read that before I move on to the next slide. The reason why I chose this is because it just shows how passionate Charles was about geology, and he actually, because he was so passionate, he conducted so much research that he actually, he knew what he was talking about. And again, this is why he's one of our renowned scientists in the field of geology. So this is natural selection. The work Charles provided the world was valid and rational. This particular work also corresponded with the beliefs of many scientists. As time went on, these beliefs came justifications that were considered to be proved. Now, in our day and age, the scientific community at large aspects Lyell's explanations for rocks, layers, and other geological effects with little question. The connection concerning Darwin and Lyell's work suggested that a certain aspect of human science is currently active today. Darwin acknowledged and recognized Lyell's work in a quite significant way, as this helped when validating his own beliefs. There are some facts suggesting that former geological studies challenged Darwin's present ideas. However, Darwin made the choice not to accept these. Lyell was uninterested when it came to the thought of accepting Darwin's model of evolution, for the simple fact that it was lacking evidence. This is a photo of Charles Lyell and Charles Darwin just deliberating and talking about the theory of natural selection. This is just a representation of what they might have looked like. But yeah, I thought this was interesting to see them two actually collaborating. Now, if we have a look at uniformitarianism, it's a particular belief that states, yes, geological and biological courses have always been working together. And this is the main thing that both of the Charleses did work together on. Now, I do have a video, a 2 to 3 minute video, just explaining this a little bit more and kind of just recapping what we have spoken about already. So I'm just going to play this.
Have you ever wondered how old our Earth is, why volcanoes are so big, or how land is formed? Put it this way, your old and saggy grandparents are basically fresh babies when looking at our 4.5 billion year old planet. Through the discoveries and research of Sir Charles Lyell, identified by his big forehead and bushy mutton chops, a greater understanding of the Earth's age and formation have been made. Sir Charles Lyell was born in Forfarshire, Scotland on the 14th of November 1797 and was the oldest of 10 children. Although very intelligent, his attitude in school was questionable in his early days. This saw him placed into many schools throughout his youth. However, Lyell loved spending time in the New Forest, London, with his botanist father. Here he collected butterflies and water-based insects, sparking his love for the natural world. He later attended Oxford University, graduating with a Master of Arts in 1821. In 1822, further study occurred in London, where he undertook a degree in law. However, due to poor eyesight and a passion for nature, he made an impactful career change to the field of geology. 3 years after Lyell decided to pursue his geology career, he published his first book, called Principles of Geology. It was published because he disagreed with many on how the Earth was formed and how old the Earth really was. Cuvier's catastrophism was a popular idea at the time, described by the Earth's formation as a result of large-scale natural disasters, for example, mountains being formed by intense earthquakes. Contradicted by this was Lyell's perspective of uniformitarianism, which was the idea taken by scientist James Hutton and described the Earth's features, for example, cliffs and volcanoes, as a result of slow physical and biological processes over many years. Lyell frequently visited Mount Etna and published many notes regarding volcanoes' formation. He pointed out that lava flows from various craters and that lava turns into rock on steep ground, known as solidification, and ash deposits onto the side of the mountain, increasing the mountain's size. This proved that volcanic mountains were not prehistoric bubbles in the ground that simply just erupted, but instead were a build-up of rocks and cooled lava to show a slow process which we know as uniformitarianism. However, Lyell was not only right about uniformitarianism, his discoveries also assisted proving Cuvier wrong again through his claims that the world was only 6,000 years old. So, it can be stated that Lyell made uniformitarianism popular through his book Principles of Geology and Volcano Studies, and basically helped prove that our Earth is 4.5 billion years old, not 6,000. Lyell's contribution to the scientific world saw him become knighted in 1848 and made baronet in 1864, just 11 years before his death in 1875.
Great. Well, we'll just move on to the next slide. Now, as I conclude, I'd just like to say that Charles was definitely a great man of his time. And different to most geologists, Charles never considered observations and collections as ends in themselves, but he used them to build and test theories. The Principles of Geology, Elements of Geology, and Antiquity of Man were the works that changed the way scientists viewed the nature of geology. Charles's research and works played a significant role in the science of geology. He is remembered as the man who persuaded famous scientist Charles Darwin. This is one of the many reasons as to why he was considered to be the leading geologist of his generation, which I definitely agree with, especially by researching Charles. He definitely had a different way of thinking, and he was so passionate and so inquisitive, which is why he thrived in this area. That's just some pictures to conclude and my references. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.